All right, traders, this is Christian Farmer at Strawback Trade Group and quick end of day recap for Friday. I've been doing these Friday videos a little bit more frequently. Usually I just do them Monday through Thursday, but it's nice to kind of sit back and review, once the market's closed for the week, just what kind of happened for the week. So it's a nice review, and we could also go through some option activity in a couple charts. But it also talk a little bit about next week as well, which will be a jam-packed week in terms of events, earnings. We have a Fed meeting next week as well. But this was the performance in sectors for the week. And this is 5-day performance, by the way, which is going to cover, because we had a holiday in the beginning of the week, it is going to cover Friday as well. It's just a Bloomberg API data that I get that's 5 days. So, but just keep in mind, if you look at this for SPY, I think we finished exactly flat for the week. So you can see we had the big move down on Monday. So again, maybe not looking at Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, this basically balanced out. If we put in 122. 2019, or I guess let's call that 118. 2019. Did that come in? It did not. Let's try that one more time. Let's put 118, 2019. You can see the performance. The SPY was down 26 basis points, but tons of opportunities to trade this week with the S&P flat for the week. The semiconductors up 7%. Again, that's going to cover Friday as well, but really a nice week. And if you look at where the semis were, semis really got smoked on Tuesday. You can see they were down 2.9%, and then of course big rally at the end of the week. And so some really strong performance. Solar names, China internets were very strong. Robotic names, that's because a couple of those semi names are in that robotics ETF. But the banks were strong as well. They were up 2.5%. But some really nice performance if you found it, and if you found, not even just in the ETFs, but in single names. On the underperforming side, oil and gas names were down a little bit. Biotech and healthcare, it was really, you had to kind of find some names that were winners in the group, but I saw a lot of names that underperformed. J&J reported this week. Also, medical device names were a little bit weak. IRBT, am I thinking of the right name? ISRG, excuse me. Also RMD. Those names both went down on earnings. So the healthcare space was a little bit difficult this week. Remember, the last couple of weeks it's been very strong. Besides that, a couple, names like consumer staples, those were flat for the week. So just not much of interesting trades there. S&P, just to kind of give my quick technicals on the S&P. Forget about. I try to ignore a lot of the noise that's on Twitter, talking about overhead resistance, talking about NIMO being overbought, and I've talked about that over and over the last couple weeks. Just follow. I've been following price. I've been talking a lot about the 5-period moving average, how prices basically remained above there. It gave a little bit of a shake and bake there, but there was nothing really to kind of tell you to go short if you're following price. Nothing really there other than, of course, our mind is always speculating. Oh, there's overhead resistance. There's going to be issues. Sure. I mean, that could take place at any time, right? I mean, if we look at the Qs, I heard island reversals as well, which if you look at the futures, you won't see island reversals. So it really it all depends what you look at, right? If you look at NASDAQ futures, there's no island reversal. So, you can make stuff up depending on what you want to look at, right? So if you look at the Qs, right, from this week, island reversal. But, that's these things, I don't know. I just don't put too much faith into that. My opinion is I would rather say, hey, price is still going above the short-term moving averages and still look strong. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody, because everybody's doing analysis and trying to, get ahead of the curve. But, what helps me is just not to speculate too much on on things like overhead resistance and so forth. And then also concentrate on the setups, right? I mean, you have to remember that with a lot of people sending out S&P charts, unless that's all you're trading, right? That's not going to tell you what's going on underneath the hood. So some weeks, like I was showing the performance, sometimes you could have some sectors up, just like we had this week, right, with the S&P flat. You had some areas that I think were more riskier, so more risk on, more higher beta outperform, and some things like utilities, consumer staples, healthcare, they underperformed, right? But when you add them all up, the S&P didn't move. So again, it depends what stocks you're in. That's also again why I think it's unless you're just trading the S&P, it doesn't really help if you're trading more single stocks. Again, good to see what the overall direction, but someone said this as well the other day on Twitter. I forget who it was, but there are thousands of stocks, and so the S&P is just 500 stocks. So it's really, doesn't give a great representation, of course, of the small caps, right? Might as well look at those as well. IWM. IWM, come on, IWM, let's go. And IWM, also that one's above value, and it's been leading. That was up 1.3%. That led the way, really strong. If we go over to emerging markets, we could talk a little bit about those today, and the U.S. dollar. Remember, when you're long any international ETFs, unless they specifically say that they hedge the dollar, and most of them don't, you have exposure to currencies. I go over this in a lot of videos, but so UUP got hit pretty hard today after kind of a shake and bake. Yesterday, the U.S. dollar basis points, and then it reversed completely. It was lower than the open. So that's good. That looks like a rejection of the bottom of value there. So that's kind of what I want to see as a weaker dollar, because I am long a couple things, like emerging markets. So I was on Bloomberg a week ago, not this Thursday, but last Thursday, talking about why I'm bullish emerging markets, and that performed really well this week and making progress. So again, looks a little bit different, out of the downtrend. And what I have talked about in a couple of videos, I also went on Real Vision and also talked about that as well, because I really liked emerging markets. But you could see from the weekly standpoint too, looking really nice, well into value. And what do we see today in option activity? So the kind of this stuff, it's, I don't know. I take all the option activity with a grain of salt. We've already been studying these charts, and we've known about them for a week. And now someone comes in and starts buying a whole bunch of FXI out of the money calls after, the Hang Seng moved a lot last night, was very strong. So you kind of have to, this option activity, they're chasing, right? This is what FXI looks like. It was up 1.8%. The majority of the move, by the way, for this ETF is going to happen overnight. That's why it looks very gappy, is because it is a ETF that trades. The ETF trades here in the U.S., but it's filled with local securities. So it's going to do what China does overnight. So just that's why you're going to see very little, small ranges and bigger gaps, because the move is happening overnight. But yeah, look at what they did today. So. April 45s, a lot of out of the money stuff. Some buy rates in here, which I ignore, some spreads, but a whole lot of activity in the FXI going up on the ask. So, interesting there. Again, I think it's late. I think the majority of option activity, I know people like to cherry pick orders, and they like to find that one order and say that they knew something. But I think for the majority of option activity, I'm sure some of you will disagree, but I think for the most part they're late. You could pick up on a lot of the signals. They're just, for the most part, I would say a good 70% of it is they're just chasing momentum. And if you could spot the setup prior on the chart, what you want to be, in my opinion, is already in that area before the option activity. Granted, some traders have more value than others, in terms of what we see in terms of option activity. For example, I use it for ideas. One of the names that we saw yesterday and the last couple weeks, really small call buying, but something a little bit different. I put this out. I put this chart out last night. It was up 4.5%. This is HIIQ. They are a software and insurance company. So nice one in this one. Today we saw some small calls in ZS. So again, it kind of, the ZS has been on my radar, but I kind of haven't been paying attention to it every single day. But a lot of consolidation here around 44 to 45, and it looks like it's trying to get outside of this. All right, but yeah, I mean the thing is, right? I could go through a bunch of different option activity names, but there's a ton of names that didn't have any option activity and they all went up, right? So you don't need, in my opinion, if you're you know if you watch option activity and you don't look at the charts, maybe that's one thing. But if you look at the charts, you're going to find these setups. Look at ULTI. There's no option activity in this one. Up 3.4%. Nice move above the 200-day moving average. So very nice looking. Unfortunately, the options are wide in this one. It was up 3.4% and back above the 200-day moving average. So this one, unfortunately, stock may be the best thing to kind of trade with this one, and then use that stop of the 200-day moving average. I think pretty interesting trade. We talked a lot about that in the trading room today. Another name that did not come through for me today was TTD. I've been very careful, or trying to be more careful about adding swing trades in the beginning of the day, because sometimes the candles look great in the first 2 hours and then they fade and they give that back. That happened to me earlier in the week with QLYS, which I kind of turned away from it. I think it actually looks okay. QLYS, I didn't like this. I just didn't want to be in something that didn't do what I wanted to right off the bat, but maybe a name to watch for next week. Data is all. Look at the move in data, up 5.9%. No option activity in this one either, guys. Just a great technical setup. So, again, you don't necessarily. I'm sorry, I'm really nailing home this point, but I see so many people look at option activity and they're so bogged down with it that they miss these really good setups. That basically, if you're just going through and checking things out, really nice one. I caught this one too. No option activity in FN Fabrinet. I put this trade on at around 53 bucks, or just 2 days ago, and up about 6-7% since I put that trade on as well. Again, no option activity in that one. So you don't need it. It does help. I do look at it. We talked about that one. If you want to speculate on something with option activity, the CVE continues to see some speculative call buying. Yelp is another one. I did actually take this trade because, again, I use it for not, do they know something? But just the chart looks good to me. It's in it's in the earnings gap. It's now above value. So we'll see. This is going to be a short-term trade. I think they report earnings in about a week and a half. So very nice looking chart. What else do we do very well on this week? I mean, we just hit a number of trades, so very nice. Square, how could I forget this one? Big mover. Again, there was little call buying in this one. I'm sure you can cherry pick and find an order that you would say, oh, there was call buying in this one. But, just really nice technical setup. We put this one on in the middle of last week. Right around, I think, $65. And again, I did not even have a huge position. I think I took a profit on Friday, profit target, and then I added it back into the weakness. So look at that move in Square, finished on the highs. I know there was some speculation on this name with Apple, but who knows? Right, love to see that. One name that I think everybody's kind of been forgetting about, we had a nice trader meetup this week, and we were talking about Apple at the end of the night, how it's kind of lulled everybody to sleep, right? Everybody's been watching the semiconductors this week, but it's making a nice little move. It had a great day, up 3.3%, so this will be a name to watch for next week. Believe it or not, it reports next week, so something to be aware of. But so again, another great week, and just I'll just say this in summary. If you have not checked this out, we're at tribecatradegroup.com. We have a 7.99 trial. I think you really get a lot out of it. The setups that we've been finding have been really really good. What was the other one? Yeah, another one that we took, which I mean, there's been a boatload. IQ I put on yesterday. That worked really well. Um, I did not take a profit target in this one. I took so many profit targets that I figured I'd let this one go. JD is another one we got into. That is also showing some signs of life. And then MRVL, which I've been holding for about 3 weeks. This thing got going today, the last 2 days. And again, option call buying yesterday. But we caught this back here, right? So yeah, if you took the calls from yesterday, you would have made some money on it. But here was the signal all the way back here on the 200-day moving average. This did take a VPOC, so I did force a target today because of that big version point of control being taken out. So yeah, check us out, tribecatradegroup.com. You can get 1 week for just $7.99, and you can see what we do, how we go through the motions, how we set up trades. I've been trading a lot more stock since when the VIX was all the way around 30. And that's been working out really well for me. So I've been kind of sticking with it and using the options as really kind of helps me to sit in positions a little bit longer with the with stock versus options. So I've been doing a little bit of both. I've been using options a little bit more for the shorter term trades, even day trading, but I've been using stock a little bit more and just using references on charts for stops as well as targets. Every time we get into a trade, I know the stop price and I know where I want to hit targets, right? So everything is pre-programmed. This way you're not leaving anything. You're taking a lot of emotion out of the decisions that you're making and a lot more. So we'll talk more about that in the trading room next week. Guys, have a great weekend and see you on Monday.